Hello and welcome to another episode of LOQPOD. Today I'm joined by Will Langdon-Davies from TSB. We're challenging the norms of traditional banking and looking at how TSB are evolving into the digital world. This is a really interesting conversation I have with Will, certainly around customer experience. So Will, thank you very much indeed for joining me on LOQPOD today. How about you give us a bit of an introduction, your job title, and tell me what you do at TSB?
Sure. So my job title is I'm digital sales experience. So I have a team that look after the experience our customers go through when they're opening one of our products through our digital channel. We used to look very much at personalization, but then we realised that personalization was just sort of an element of the wider digital experience customers go through. So yes, I have been doing this for I've been in digital for sort of maybe 3 years, but I've worked at TSB for around about 9-10 years. Started off in finance as an accountant, doing their profitability modelling for credit cards, which is very interesting and it's sort of a useful background into how banks make some money. I then moved into products, working in debit and credit cards. Did that for 2 or 3 years, and then 2 or 3 years ago I was moved across to digital. So yes, working in digital sales experience, which is quite a woolly title, but it means it incorporates quite a lot of important things for our customers.
Wow, you've really had a lot of experience across the bank, which I think, stands you in good stead when you go into the digital world because it's changed so much. But perhaps before we start talking about how it's changed in the digital world that you work in now, I kind of want to pull apart what banks mean by customer experience because it's become quite a buzzy thing to talk about. And I'd love to, I know you and I know the way you explain things and you're very good at this sort of thing. So help me understand exactly what banks mean by customer experience.
Well, I think you are right that it is a trend that more and more people on LinkedIn are changing their job titles to experience of some description. And I think what we mean is really it's about really putting the customer first. And again, that's a truism. It's like political parties saying they don't want children to go hungry. Obviously, everyone wants to put the customer first, but it's actually about effectively, ruthlessly, always trying to understand the experience a customer will go through when they interact with the bank. And I think it's about understanding from the journey they will go through from sort of their first interaction with this is TSB all the way through to opening a product, servicing a product, and maybe even closing a product. But it's ultimately about looking at not the siloed sort of, this is my area of the organisation, this is your area of an organisation. It's about flipping it on its head and saying, if I'm a customer, what am I seeing? What experience am I going through? Is this confusing? Is this logical? Why are they asking me these questions? Do I understand what those questions are? Do I understand the product I'm taking out? So it's one of those things where if you take it apart and think about it, it's not rocket science, It's just about flipping, if you like, coming the other side of the monitor and becoming that customer, and asking what they're feeling. What do they need to know? What experience do they need to go through to be comfortable in the job that they're doing? Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And you make it sound so much easier than it really is because, I've worked in banking for years and like any job, you get so sucked into the work you're doing. Sometimes it's actually quite difficult to take a step away. And I think that's why roles that are really focused on customer experience are more important than ever before. But you mentioned personalization earlier. How do you do it? Do you speak to customers? Is that how you learn? Do you take out these products yourselves? How do you actually learn this information so that you can apply it?
That's really interesting point. So it's that we do it in multiple different ways. I think personalization is, and I think I think customers really value. The reason people like going to a local pub, I think, is that the person behind the bar knows your name, and says, "Oh, hi, Will. How's your week? How's the extension going? How's the new puppy?" That sort of thing. Silly little things that make you feel at home and make you feel comfortable. And I think in the old days, in inverted commas, when the branch network was much busier and many more people went to the branch, there was much more of an element of that. There was much more of an element of knowing your customer because you can have that little small talk and you can have that, that little interaction, that rapport that you build up. And it's really difficult to translate that into a digital world and a digital space. It's not impossible, but it's more difficult. And you've got to make sure it's not necessarily weird or creepy, because banks do know a lot about their customers by virtue of the fact that they see a lot of the interactions they make in everyday life. But we need to be able to use that. So there's two sort of things. We can use these these digital metrics and this data we've got about, customers spending on holidays or Sainsbury's or, on petrol or whatever, and use that to try and personalize the experience. We know that we think, based on other data we've got and other customers we've seen, we think these sorts of customers might want a personal loan or might want a credit card. And that's quite old, in inverted commas, old school kind of thinking of just presenting them with a loan or with a credit card. But what we do now is we very much talk to our customers, and we do a lot of user testing, and we use an approach where we do a lot of discovery before we even start talking about how we're going to develop a product or develop a service. And we talk to customers all the time, and we quickly we try to quickly in an agile manner do something, iterate it, test it, get the customer feedback, change it, do something again. So that's there are two sort of ways I feel. There's sort of personalised, where we try and speak to the customer, understand the customer, and understand the types of customer that we have. And then there's the data that we have on that on hundreds of thousands, millions of customers, and we try and pull those two things together to sort of bring this personalised experience. So I think it's really important that we do try and help make customers feel at home, add that personal touch, but without it being creepy or strange, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does. And you mentioned data, and I remember in the past, as soon as you mentioned data, people would actually get quite scared, because as soon as you start to think about banks using your data, you see so many negative news stories about it. But actually, it's an incredibly powerful, positive thing, and actually enhances the benefit to the customer at the end of the day, doesn't it? Because I know you guys use it a lot, as you were just saying there, to kind of gain valuable insight and to see about customer habits and lifestyles, for example. Because I suppose banks, and you'll know this better than anyone with your experience, but banks aren't just about a place to put your money anymore. They're more of a partner, aren't they? They're kind of, there for you through all sorts of different parts of your life. How does that translate at TSB?
That's a really good question. And I think we like to think of what we're doing is we're trying to give our customers money confidence. So what does money confidence mean? And I think the money confidence is I like the way you sort of put it, as a partner. What we're trying to do is money confidence isn't about customers having more money, or necessarily what it's about is it's about giving customers the confidence to understand money, to be confident that if they had a shortfall in money or they needed to buy a washing machine or fix their boiler, they would have the confidence to navigate what is a complicated, money is complicated, loans are complicated, mortgages are complicated. But what we're trying to do is, really understand, by talking to our customers, understanding the different sorts of personalities and the different sorts of ways customers think, and they react and they process, these complex decisions in life. We try and, break that down to create services and products that can give our customers that confidence and really partner with them. So we actually see ourselves as, exactly as you said, sort of we want to be a friend. We want people to come into TSB, to come into our branches, to go onto our website, and we want them to sort of see us as someone that would help them through difficult periods in their life, positive periods in their life. I mean, ultimately, no one wants to really interact with a bank, but they want an extension on their house, or they want to go on that holiday, or they want to buy that car, or they want to buy that house. So we've got to make that experience, give them the confidence to have the best experience and the best outcome they can. And I think that's what we try and do. And it's that money confidence is something that is in everything we do. So from very mundane tasks on a daily basis, we think, right, well, how is this going to help a customer be more confident in money, navigating through the complex, difficult stages of their life, all the way to the big strategic projects, building new sales journeys or building new app, etc. So that's kind of how we do it at TSB.
I love that. And I love the word confidence, because, it just makes me think about when we were younger, because I think you and I are fairly similar age, when we were younger, our parents didn't really talk about money. It was a really kind of taboo subject. And it's been a bit of because we're in this weird period of, I think I read something yesterday, I think we're the geriatric millennials, which made me feel ill. But, we're in that weird period between being really cool and trendy where everybody talks about everything. And, we grew up with parents that didn't really talk about money. So we're kind of smack bang in the middle. And it's quite weird. It was a real transition for me to actually say, it's all right to say, I'm struggling a bit with money in this zone, or I'm doing really well in this zone. And money conversations are happening more and more and more. And I think, as you say, the confidence that, the likes of TSB are doing to help encourage people to actually embrace money, because we all have to deal with it, whether we like it or not. What are your customers kind of telling you, and how have you kind of seen that attitude towards discussions around money change over your career?
I think, again, it's a very good question. I think if I reflect on that, I think in recent research that we've done for something I've been working on, I think control is a really important thing that customers want to have and feel. And I think lots of people don't necessarily feel in control of their money, and that can be as mundane as, not necessarily knowing how much money's going in or out of their account. To more, more not serious, but more really sort of life-changing stuff where they feel like they're spending too much on something and they can't stop it, and that can be as, I don't want to say serious, but that can be from gambling or too much on coffee, and that whole sort of framework in between. And I think that the customers we talk to sort of crave that control and understanding to And some people are really good at it. My wife is super good at knowing how much money is in our accounts and what's going on, and I'm terrible at it. I don't, and I then shy away from it and sort of put my head in the sand. And I think that's what that feeling is definitely something that a big chunk of our customers feel, and they also feel things like fraud worries them, and more so than we think than maybe you or I would appreciate. But I suppose that's because we've worked in banking. We kind of understand that there's lots of protections available. But that worries a lot of people. And I think things that TSB does, like our fraud protection, guarantee, really tests well with our customers, because when they talk about it, they're like, oh, actually, yeah, you really do help us out, and we are protected, etc. So a lot of it's around control, understanding how much money they have, and understanding options they have if they do feel that they need, either get into difficulty or actually things are better than they thought they were, and they might be able to, afford that extension. Does that make sense? It's kind of a little waffly, but hopefully you kind of get the point.
No, it makes perfect sense. And, that kind of leads me on to questioning you about the change. You mentioned, change in traditional banking and digital. You've obviously witnessed that, and obviously there's less banks on the high street now, and the whole world is becoming a lot more digital. How are your customers responding to that? And I'm going to ask you two questions here, Will, sorry, so don't want to blow your brain here, but how are customers responding to that generally? And also, how do you guys find that competitive advantage on between you and the banks that are in a very similar situation?
Yes, yes. Let me my brain try and process that. I think customers. I think unlike other elements or other industries that have been disrupted by digital services, the classic one that everyone quotes is sort of Uber and taxis. I think that was accepted by people because getting a taxi isn't the be all and end all of your life. So a disruptor coming along and completely changing how your relationship with traveling from A to B in the city is something you can take a risk on. Because if it doesn't work, it's probably not the end of the world. If it does work well, you think, God, this is really good, and you use it. And that's why sort of things like taxis and selling books and all the other areas that had sort of deep disruption from digital have sort of fared. I think banks are slightly different because I think different generations have different different relationships with their bank. A lot of people, our parents' age, probably might have known their bank manager, and might have had that personal relationship with them. And I also think people like, and even I love using new technology, but even I quite like the fact that I've got a bank with branches. And I know I haven't been to a branch, I must confess, for a long time. But I like the fact that there are branches there, or someone I can call up, because there's that trust of my money being there. That said, I think that it's a bit of a dichotomy. It's a bit of a dichotomy, because we then are there, but while customers like the fact that there's bricks and mortar, our services are now judged against the very best in class from all the fintechs that provide incredibly slick services. Know exactly who you are. The Amazons, Apples, again, Ubers, Just Eats of this world, and they compare our services to that. So we're in this very strange position where we need to be secure and solid. This is where your money is. We're safe, but we need to be able to provide these services that are super slick and help customers interact with their bank in ways that they expect to interact with their bank. When they take out a product, not to answer 40 questions, to answer 3 questions or 8 questions. It takes 10 minutes, not 2 hours. Or when customers call up our call, well, actually, they don't have to call up the call center because all the information is in our app and everything they can do is there. We've got to be able to provide that service. So it's a very interesting balancing act that we have to find. Does that answer both your questions? Or
Yes,
it
really does. And it goes exactly back to what you were saying at the beginning, Will, around customer experience and tailoring it, not just because of competition in the digital field, but because it really matters to customers. Okay, here's a loaded question for you. Is TSB a traditional bank, or is it a digital bank, or is it both? What is it now? How do you see it?
I think we are in a very unique position because we have a pretty smart platform to work on. So we don't have as an agile and a platform as the Monzos and Steins as well. But what we do have that they don't have is a branch network. So what we've got is this really interesting balance between having a banking platform that is pretty agile actually and can do things pretty quickly compared to the traditional banks as well. But we've got a branch network that we can leverage, and the branch network is not like the old days. It will not continue to work like the old days. But everyone thought Apple were mad when they started opening branches, short stores 10 or 15 years ago. But they weren't stores just to sell things. They were stores to help customers. It was back to that experience thing. Their products were beautiful to come and touch and hold. People loved seeing the new iPhone, and it felt really nice. And they also loved the Genius Bar, where people gave them all this great, knowledge and experience. So actually, I think we're in a really great place because we've got a platform that allows us to do stuff, really innovative stuff, really speed the development of our app and our digital services, but also a branch network that can help people when they need help face-to-face, provide them that area of support and give them that face-to-face experience, because you learn a lot from customers talking to them. And I think that's where we are in that. But we've got to be very careful we balance that correctly. We don't lean too much into digital and forget the branch, or lean too much into our branches and forget digital.
Talking about the TSB app earlier, and then obviously that's kind of spurred on some other thinking from me around how do you actually draw customers back into your app on a regular basis, because you don't need to check your bank balance every single day, do you? So what do you guys do to kind of pull people back in so you've got that more regular interaction with people like you mentioned?
That's a very good question. And I think what we try and do is there is the standard functionality that you have with a bank, checking your balance, checking your credit card balance, making payments, and they're really important. Actually, people do that quite often. But I think it is, again, I think one of your previous questions is around it being part of a customer's everyday lives. And I think it links to the point I just made about, do you put more, is it more about social? Is there a social element to the app where customers can get advice, talk to other their friends about money through the app? That's a very difficult one to balance, because to your point earlier, do people like talking about money as much, etc., etc. But what we try and do is think ahead, think how we can interact and bring these sort of, these quite innovative services to the app, but actually just make the experience of the app really good. Make it a quick, slick, customer focused way of a customer checking your bank balance. I mean, again, really obvious stuff, but actually when you really think about it, you really just want a very beautiful, design, UX way and way of customers can interact. So I think for us, it's bringing new technology in, but actually just making it a really, really nice experience. So when they do check it, it works beautifully every time. They see the information they need, and then they come back that way. But it's a good question.
Thank you, Will. I've really enjoyed our chat today. It's been really insightful, but also really good to kind of hear things from a different perspective as well. So I really appreciate your time, and thanks for joining me on LOQPOD today.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thanks very much indeed.